I was the leader in the band for a while, and now I'm the leader of my own company. So thank you. I never made that connection till just now.
Oh my God, I am elated. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
we are joined with Srini Thonta.
Hi, Srini.
Hey, how are you?
Good
So,
buddy. How are you?
girls, thanks so much for making time, and definitely it's a great topic. And
Sure.
sure, appreciate your time first of all. And yeah, so look forward to this exciting session.
Thank you. You look like you
Yeah.
got a suit and tie on. I should have gone and put a suit and tie on. I got a T-shirt on. It says Hawaii.
No worries. Yeah.
Yeah,
Skip,
Raj.
Julian, can I make a comment?
Absolutely. Welcome, Raj.
Yeah, hi, Julian. Skip, I wanted to make a comment.
Hi, Raj.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, good, good. You see, nowadays the management has become a series of tactical moves. Like, basically, if there is a crisis, put a band-aid on that. And then if that doesn't work, put another band-aid on that. Like the tendency is to manage for the day, for the given crisis, and get along with that. Or if there is a problem, then look around on a knee-jerk basis for a solution. Okay?
Yeah. Then they look around to see who they can blame it on.
Yeah, yeah. And this is
Right.
typically known as management or stage management. Okay. Whereas leadership is totally different because you are talking about consistency. You're talking about ethical practices that can be reproduced, repracticed, that can be emulated by others, and that is over a long term. Leadership is totally different from management. Okay?
Yep.
So I like the topic leadership trends because we want to know the long-term trends that can inspire an organization. Okay, it is not something that suits the convenience of the company for the current crisis, but it should be a very sustainable trend that anybody and everybody can follow. And how do you see that trend emerging, or is it only we are seeing that the ad hoc managers?
It's okay. We'll talk about that. And I can tell you what my experience has been, and you can share some of your experiences. It's 5 after now. Do you want me to wait a few more minutes, or you want me to start talking?
We can start off. Yes, 5:05 is when we generally start. And yeah, we want to welcome everyone to this wonderful session of Let Us Talk It webinars. And it's the only reason we do it is for the community. The only reason we are here is so that, we have a platform where we can share our knowledge, make an impact in the community, and we spread the word around. So as much as our only goal here is to make the webinar as engaging, as fun, as value fulfilled for people. So we would really request all people who are joining in live in Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, please inform your friends, colleagues, family, and they can also benefit from this webinars. Today's topic in Let Us Talk It webinar is 2020 leadership strategies. We know that leadership has different face different ideas for different people. So we'll get to know from a very a speaker who has seen it most, I would say, in his life, because he has over 24 years of experience, and he is the president of International Training Consortium, Inc. And his name is little, I mean, you have Charles Skip Pettit, and why Skip? I would like him to say that in his presentation. But we are very honored to have you, Skip. He is the co-author of Moving Beyond Bias: Success Strategies in the 21st Century book. He's the trainer and consultant, and his company has been involved and provides training for the Pentagon, the national and international agencies, organizations, government organizations, and they are based out of Washington, so they do a lot of for the government. And he is a thought leader in leadership, and he also is a co-founder of Thought Leadership Conference. And be it a large or small organization, International Training Consortium, and its team of thought leaders and talented professionals continue to make the difference. Welcome, Skip, to this session of our Let Us Talk It webinar. Over to you.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Nice to be with you all. My name is Skip Pettit, and so one thing that you've asked me to explain is, where did I get that strange name? And all my great grandfathers and great uncles were all Navy captains of ships. They're skippers of a ship. So when I was born, my mother thought that would be a nice name to give me. So she calls me Skipper. And that is the name that has stuck with me. So thank you for the opportunity to be with you. We're going to talk a little bit about my insights on leadership, and they may be different than yours. I've been around for a long time. I had lived overseas for 9 years in Europe. I came back to the United States when I was 18 years old, and shortly went to college for a few years, and shortly thereafter got drafted during the Vietnam War and went into the U.S. Army. And many of the lessons that I've learned have come from my time in the military. I went in as a fairly sheltered and inexperienced young man, and was fortunate enough to have served under some commanders that were very good, and I served under a few that were very bad. But I ended up staying in the Army for 22 years, and I retired in 1993. Along the way, I had taught at a few colleges, and I had met some good trainers, and I had been a leadership trainer and a cross-cultural trainer when I was in the military. And so right before I retired, I was offered a job to write a leadership program for a company for the Department of Defense. And it was a 22-day leadership program. It took me a year to write it and a year to teach it. And when it was over, they said, "Great job, but you trained everybody. We're not going to train anybody else." And all of a sudden I was unemployed. And that was the impetus for me to start international training. I needed a job, and I really liked training. And they had been selling me as a trainer, and I thought, therefore, I could sell myself as one. And so now for 28 years, we've been doing that successfully. So, so let's talk a little bit about leadership. I mean, that's our topic. I spoke with a few of you. Raj and I spoke a little bit earlier, and Srini and Julan. And so we talked a little bit about, you know, how do you deal with working with a bad manager, or how do you deal working with a manager who is afraid to make a decision, and so they consequently have everybody running around in circles because they won't make a decision and you don't know what direction you're going in. And so we'll take a little bit of time. We're going to be together for the next 45 minutes, and I will try to address some of those issues in my conversation. If you really have a hot question and you want to try to get an answer, you can either cut right in or you can send a text message and we will respond to it in the chat box later in the presentation. So let's take a look at, I put some slides together. I'm not wed to these, but we can use them as a springboard to other conversations. So the role of the leader seems to be migrating. 2020, I think, is a pivotal change in organizations. I'm actually finishing a book right now on remote work. And there's lots of books out there on how to lead remote workers, but there aren't very many books out there for the remote worker. And that's what we're working on. But how you manage the distributed workforce is different the way you work when people are walking every day into your office and you get a chance to see them and get a chance to chat with them on site. So I'm in the Washington, D.C. area, and we've been shut down for the last 3 months, basically. And it looks like we're going to be shut down for a while longer. And so many people are working remotely from home. And so this requires new leadership and new approaches and new technology. And Zoom was very fortunate that they were in a position to provide a solution. I'm a trainer and a management consultant, and they told us 20 years ago that on-site live training in the classroom was dead and it was all going to be replaced by online training. Well, fortunate for me, the last 20 years that was not true. We were still doing live training, which I think is a different dynamic than talking remotely. But now the reality has come. This paradigm has shifted. And most of our training now, actually all of it, is done remotely. So that requires new technology. Unfortunately, we have that. We did not have that 20 years ago. So fortunately, we have that now, and we are all learning how to best use that. So I see the role of the leader is going to have to change. It's going to migrate towards increased teamwork and, in my sense, increased diverse teamwork. So managing folks who don't think like you, who don't look like you, who don't have the same experience you do. That's a dynamic that we're going to see leaders having to address. Managing people who have different technology, different skill bases and different technological skills. You focus on IT primarily. I do IT training for the Department of Defense, and we do cloud classes and artificial intelligence and blockchain and Jira, and I mean, whatever they want, IT project management, risk management, cyber security, whatever they want, we will design a training program for them. But we also do soft skills training, leadership, project management, team building, all those kinds of things. And they require the leader to have strong emotional intelligence and have strong soft skills as well as strong hard skills. And I think that now the 2020 dynamic that we're in is really going to force IT and technology leaders to develop their soft skills. And so thank you for joining today. One thing you'll find out the more you work in soft skills is they ain't so soft. They are hard, and people are your most challenging audience to work with. Technology, once you figure it out, is pretty predictable, but people are very unpredictable. And so developing soft skills will behoove you not only at work, but everywhere. So here's some of my thoughts. Becoming a great leader requires you taking proactive steps to improve your capabilities. So this is a perfect way to do this. This is short, sweet, an hour. You get some new ideas and use this as a springboard for future lessons on leadership. So here's a couple questions for you to consider. Second bullet, are you poised to lead your team in the right direction with the right skills in 2020 and beyond? Are you poised to do that? Do you have those skills now? If you don't, where can you go to get them? Do you have a mentoring program in your organization that teaches these skills? Do you have a succession planning program in place to groom future leaders, to get from the senior people that are going to be retiring soon, to get from them their institutional knowledge, but also to master some new skills so that you can groom leaders that are going to be appropriate for where you hope your organization is going to be in 3 to 5 years? Are you confident in the path that you're taking or that your company is taking? So let's take a look at some of these things. Employee engagement is a huge issue. So Raj, one of the things we were talking a little bit about before we ran out of time was that the leader sets the tone for the organization. And if he or she is competent and confident in his or her role, then they're not going to be threatened by smart employees, and they're going to be exploring with you how can they help you be successful. And they're going to do everything they can. That's their job, to help you be successful. Because if you're successful, ultimately, I'm successful. So some of the things that I do as a leader, and I learned this very early on, I do not surround myself with people who tell me how great I am. I surround myself with people who have complementary skills to mine so that together we can be synergistic. And by that, I mean their strengths cover my limitations and my strengths cover their limitations. And together, 1 + 1 becomes 3, 10, or 100. Now, you may say, wait a minute, 1 + 1 is 2. Well, I would agree with you. 1 + 1 can be 2. I would suggest to you 1 + 1 can be 0. You get the wrong people on the wrong project at the wrong time with the wrong skills and the wrong attitude, and they cancel each other out, and 1 + 1 becomes nil. But you get the right combination of people, 1 + 1 can be 10 million. Think of Steve Jobs and Wozniak. Think of Microsoft, Bill Gates and his partner. You can think of different people who have combined their skills and talents to create a much greater reality than they could have done by themselves. So here's another question I want you to think about. Odds are you are successful in your organization. And odds are one of the reasons you're smart, you've got skills, But another reason is that somebody has mentored you. Somebody has taken time out to teach you the spoken and unspoken rules of the organization. And it is the unspoken rules that will help you be successful. Things are not always like they seem. You can think of organizational culture as an iceberg. There's about 10 or 20% of the things that are going on in the organization that are on top of the iceberg, and you can see them and you can challenge them. But underneath, 80% of the dynamics in most organizations are done underwater, out of sight. And unless you're plugged into how things get done in the organization, you likely will miss a lot of those things. So let me tell you how this works. There was a time when I was in the Army in the middle of my career. I'd been in for 13 years. And I could not get promoted past E5, Sergeant E5, which is the lowest sergeant you can be. I had 2 master's degrees. I had more education than my commanding officer, yet I could not get promoted. And one day we had a senior sergeant by the name of Sergeant Graham, who normally would not give me the time of day. But on that particular day, he came up to me and he said, "Pettit, you will never get promoted with that attitude." I didn't know what he was saying to me, but I felt like crying. I'm like, "Sergeant Graham, I'm trying as hard as I can. I just don't know what to do." So this is before computers. So I'm going to date myself. This is before databases. So he said, "Well, come on upstairs." So we went upstairs. He said, "Push those 2 tables together." I pushed the tables together and he went over to the closet and he got out a big cardboard box and he came out and he emptied into the center of the table 2,500 little pieces of paper. And each one was a position in our command. We were a headquarters. We had 53 of us in the headquarters, but we had 2,500 people in our command. So he said, "Go through all these, find all the E6s, which is what I wanted to be, and come find me." Took me hours to go through there. Finally, I found there were 8. So I went to Sergeant Graham. "Sergeant Graham, there are 8 E6s in the command." He said, "Okay." He said, "See which ones are vacant and see if anyone can be taken by correspondence courses because we don't have any money for travel." So I went back. Sure enough, 3 were vacant and there was 1 I could take by correspondence courses. So he said, "Sign up for the courses, get your books in the mail, fill them out, send them in. When you get your certificate, come see me." So that's what I did. I sent away for the books to become a patient administration specialist, E6 staff sergeant. I got the books a couple weeks later. I filled them out, read them, took the test, sent them in. 3 or 4 months later, I got my certificate in the mail. I went to see Sergeant Graham. Sergeant Graham, I got my certificate." He says, "Good, let's go see the colonel." Well, I've never seen the colonel. E5s don't go see colonels. Colonels are 1 step away from generals. So I did not know what to expect. We go see the colonel. We go in. He says, "Colonel, this is Sergeant Pettit. we have a vacancy in the command. He's qualified for it. We want to promote him. What do you think the colonel said? I was terrified. He said, sure. I said, thank you, sir. Walked out of there, and where do you think I immediately went? Some people say the bar. No. I immediately went back upstairs. I pushed those tables together. I got E6, E7, E8. I was up for E9 when I retired. Sergeant Graham took 10 minutes out of his life, and he changed my whole life. I wasn't afraid of doing the work. I did not know how to make the system work for me. And that's what a mentor can help you do, help you understand the system. Now, I make a recommendation to you. A great book came out a couple years ago called The Third Door, D-O-O-R, Third Door. Basic principle is this. You're trying to get into a nightclub. 97% of us would stand in line and wait our turn to get in the nightclub. 2% of us would drive up in our Lamborghini, jump out, and because we're famous or rich, we could go right in. But there's one person who doesn't do either of those things. He or she finds a third door, another way to get into the system that is a non-traditional way. And that's one of the things that smart leaders are good at doing, figuring out how to make systems work for themselves and for others. And they can help you do that. So I encourage you, it's a quick read, The Third Door. It's a very, very interesting read. I'll tell you just the very beginning. A college student gets challenged in class by a professor. And he all of a sudden realizes that he could sit in college for the next 6 years and still not get where he wants to go. And he makes the decision immediately, 1, to quit college that day, 2, within a year, to get to Bill Gates and to get to Warren Buffett and to have meetings with both of them. And it's the story of how he is able to do things like that. Things that were deemed impossible to a freshman or sophomore college student in some podunk town in the middle of nowhere. Anyway, so Sergeant Graham is a natural born leader. Some people are natural born leaders. Others of us say we're leaders, but we're really not. Some people have, your best interests in mind, and many people do not. So let's take a look at some IT trends and how leadership might impact these moving forward. So leadership development, it cultivates in human capital. You've got to build people up, develop people, develop yourself. You want to engage employees so that they stay. You don't want employees disengaged. You don't want employees going and telling everybody, my job sucks and my boss is terrible. Don't ever come work at my company. You don't want that kind of, you cannot afford in a competitive environment to have people outside your company talking badly about your culture and your leadership. So cultivating human capital in your organization is key for your success in the future. Society demands that we work with a more and more diverse technological workforce. More women in leadership positions, more people of color, non-native speakers, others. More and more and more, we're going to find that our workplace is increasingly diverse. And it's not just diverse on where you come from. It's diverse on age. We have, for the first time now, 5 generations in the workplace. I'm a baby boomer. Baby boomers are 55 to 75, give or take. People my parents' age, traditionalists, 80, 90. Some of them are still working in the workplace. 60 is the new 40. 50 is the new 30. So you're going to see people working beyond the age that we typically thought people would retire. When my grandparents were 65, they were old. They were beat. I remember looking at my grandfather, 65 years old. He had worked his whole life. He was beat. Now you've got people, I'm 70 years old. I'll be 71 this year. I'm working 60 to 80 hours a week. My wife says I got to slow down, but I keep hitting it hard because I like what I'm doing and I love the challenge and I enjoy the people that I work with. So it's an exciting time for top to bottom and bottom to top transformation in organizations. You are the ones, hopefully, that can bring those changes around in your organization. Our organizations are shaped by trends, but they're also shaped by a clear vision from our leadership. If your leader does not have vision, then he or she is missing one of the 10 top skills that a leader needs to have. Now, you can write these down if you like. They're not in the slides, or they're not in the slides the way I'm going to read them to you right now. Here are 10 very important skills that a leader needs to have in today's environment. You've got to have a vision. Joel Barker, B-A-R-K-E-R, you may have heard of him. He made the term paradigm, P-A-R-A-D-I-G. He made paradigms famous about 25 years ago by coming out with a number of books and movies around paradigms and how organizational culture can shift. But he said, if you just have vision with no energy, then you got dreams. And he said, if you just have energy and no vision, is I don't know where we're going, but we're making great time. Now, maybe you've been in an organization where there was no vision. You're working really, really hard, but you never get anywhere. You never accomplish anything. Or, maybe you've had an organization that had great vision, but no follow through. And so you had a lot of dreams, but you never really accomplished anything. So you need both of those. You got to have a vision that has energy. To be an effective leader, number 2, you've got to be a coach. You've got to be able to see the good in people. You got to be able to see skills and talents in people and help develop those. You have to decide to be a servant. There are, I'm going to tell you 8 different types of leadership theory. You've got to pick one or a combination of 1 or 2 or 3 and become that. I've picked servant leadership and situational leadership as my 2 primary ones. I postulate that I am here for my organization. I am here for my employees. I am here for my colleagues that I work with. I don't ask them to do something I'm not willing to do. And I'm a servant leader. I put people first. That is my mindset. I believe that in my heart. I believe if the leader is not, if the organization is not successful, the leader is not successful. So I put people first. Another one is to be an autocrat. Some styles of leadership are, all about me. I make the decisions. I drive the car. I tell you where we're going. I craft the vision. Well, if it's all about you and you're one way, you know, and you challenge people who challenge your assumptions, wow, you're setting yourself up for failure, I think, or a dictatorship. So some folks are autocratic and they make all the decisions alone. I'm not that way. Some folks are laissez-faire. We call that, that's a French term. It just sort of hands off, comme ci, comme ça, whatever, whatever it is, it is. I'm not that way either. I'm not totally hands off and I'm not totally hands on. I try to maintain enough contact to know what's going on, to hire the right people, empower them to do what they need to do, give them the tools and talents and training they need, and then cut them loose and let them be creative. And if they need something from me, then they can come back to me. I'm more of the next type, which is a democratic leader. I ask for feedback. I ask for input. What do you think about this? What do you think about this, Hema? Is this, does this make sense to you? Pierre, what do you think about this? Hey, Raj, great idea. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let's see if we can roll that into our design. So it's the idea that we share the praise, we share the glory, we share information. That's huge. Some managers withhold information from us and then they set us up to fail. Another type of leadership is the pace setter, Pacesettr. And the pace setter is a very clear communicator who sets very clear goals and says, hey, we're going to do this, this, and this, and we're going to try to be at this point by July 5th. And everybody knows what the expectation is. Everybody knows what the vision is. And everybody can ask when they need help. A transformational leader is someone who is very good when it comes to changing organizations, when it comes to, again, goal setting and driving results. I forgot to mention that the pace setter is also one who sets a very lockstep, very rigid format for here's where we're going to go, here's how we're going to get there at this and this and this milestone. So transformational leaders are also clear communicators. They also set goals, and sometimes they do set milestones, but they don't do it in, without the input from everybody else on the team. A transactional leader is one who is laser focused. So a transformational leader does communication and sets goals, but a transactional leader is one who is very clear. They have a laser focus. I want to get to Berlin. Boom, that's what we're doing. That's the mission. Everybody knows what it is. Anything you can do to get us Berlin, let's do it. And then last, bureaucrat. We have some leaders whose style is bureaucratic. And they like to follow the rules. They like to color inside the lines. When somebody tries to color outside the lines, they get freaked out. And so you have to find the type of leader that you want to work for. If you like very clear guidance and structure and you want every day to be the same, then you're going to work in a bureaucratic system with very clear rules, and very rarely do people go outside of those. If you want to be really innovative, then you want to get into an Apple with Steve Jobs, or you want to get into, a company that's just really starting to take off. So while we're talking about this, I'll give you 8 different theories of leadership that you might want to consider. they're all different, but they all have some shared commonalities. They come at leadership from a 360 approach. So one of them is called the great man theory, and it's basically that that leaders are made, they're not born. You don't pop out being a great leader. You actually are shaped, like Winston Churchill is considered one. Mahatma Gandhi is another one. Abraham Lincoln is another one. Shaped by their experiences, not by some magic gene they had when they were born. So, great man, quote unquote, great man theory. That's one. Second one is called trait theory, TRAIT, trait theory. And that's a theory that uses measurement to measure your potential. And there are a number of assessment tools in there that you take, and they measure you against different traits. Are you very high in this trait, or are you very low in this trait? Are you very high in this one, very low? And then they crunch all those numbers together and come up with this is your particular trait matrix, or whatever it is. The third one is called a contingency theory. Contingency theory. And it basically says that leadership is situational. How you develop and the type of leader you develop into is based on the kind of situation. It's contingent on the kind of situations that you have to lead in. So no one thing is predictable. It's just that you are shaped by the contingency that you're in. The fourth one, I believe, and I actually believe in contingency theory as well. I think I have been shaped by the experiences that I've been in. But situational leadership, if you were to ask me what is my primary leadership style, I would say it's probably situational leadership, which is there are 4 different styles, and there are 4 different approaches to working in the situational leadership, and it's a bell curve. So down the bottom left, you have a brand new team that has never worked together, maybe never even been on a team together, maybe were just brought together to work on this project. And they need a lot of guidance. So your role as a situational leadership is to be the coach. Tell them everything. Tell them how to do everything. My way or the highway. As the team begins to develop skills and get better, then they can do a few more things on their own. They're starting to coalesce. They're starting to listen to each other, starting to learn each other's skills. I still give a lot of guidance, but I'm slowly but surely letting the team practice some new things. As the team matures and gets more and more successes, I relinquish some control and I let the team run. But I rope them in when I need to. And then lastly, when the team is high performing, the last thing I should do is to micromanage a high performing team. If they have the skills, they have the vision, they know the mission, then I've got to let them run with it. And hey, I'm available if you need me, but I'm not going to be telling you what to do. You're on your own. I like situational leadership. That works very well for me. And because I work with people in all of those levels, and it allows me to be flexible. The fifth model that I use, fifth theory, is behavioral theory, and that basically says leaders are not born as well. They're shaped by the behaviors that influence their lives. Number 6, democratic. The democratic theory is one. It looks at dimensions of leadership, and it identifies where you fit into a particular dimension, and then it gives you a score and some characteristics of that particular dimension. The 7th one is transactional theory, and it tells you what to do and not do. If you do this, this will happen. If you don't do that, this will happen. So it looks at transactions between people and things and the team and the organization, and it tells you do's and don'ts. And lastly, relationship theory, and that looks at how to transform relationships with people, how to transform communication processes within your organization, how to work with people as their leader in a way in which it is mutually respectful and it is two-way communication. It's relationship driven. It's transaction driven. So those are some different styles. I've got just a couple more minutes, and I think we're going to open it up to questions, but let me go through a few slides. Here's some things that are going on with traditional IS leaders and IT leaders versus what we're seeing today. Established IS leaders spend a lot of time in their career and their career function. They do software development, they do standards, they do some operation stuff, but they weren't real interested in the past many times in getting involved in line of business subject matter expertise. They saw them more as a support function to the line of business rather than integrated. Now that's changing, in my opinion. Emerging IS leaders need to be involved in cyber and physical security. They need to be involved, or they are involved more deeply in financial analysis, scenario planning, hardware and software needs for remote distributed workers and figuring out what'll work, ensuring consistent, seamless data, evaluating and vetting new types of software that are going to be needed in the office if you go back to the office and in the distributed workplace. Here's trends that we're seeing. You know all of these. 5G is a little unclear how it's going to impact telecom and things. Edge computing, AI, machine language, business intelligence, these things are here. Virtual, I think virtual reality is going to be very strong in future training because it institutes, it's a nice blending, if you will, of an in-classroom environment and an online virtual classroom. So I think we're going to see changes in that. Current IS leaders who have not broadened their skills and knowledge are really going to be behind the 8 ball. You've got to work on your career development. You've got to develop these new skills and perspectives. Otherwise, you're going to be left behind. You've got to seek business and IT opportunities to weave both into your organization and into your future education. You've got to develop soft skills to be an effective leader. You cannot just be a technical expert. You've got to be a people expert. And the way you do that is develop your emotional intelligence. EQ, emotional quotient, tells you how strong you are in emotional intelligence. So 10 ways to define the art of leading. We talked a little bit about having a vision. You make your vision bold, aim high. You got to have the right vision at the right time. can't be a hustle. It's got to be realistic. You got to be a servant leader. You got to know, who you're working with. You got to be motivated. You've got to be able to motivate people. That's what a leader does. Through motivation, second bullet, a leader channels worker energy, skills, and talents. Leading is not about talking and giving orders. It's about listening. God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. You should listen twice as much as you talk. That's the guideline that I've been given, and I try to follow it. I was also told years ago, no testimony without a test. If you're going to be a leader, you're going to work with people, and people will test you. They'll test you whether you're a person of your word. They'll test you any number of ways. No testimony without a test. Until you can survive and thrive in an environment that tests you, you'll have limited success and have limited things to testify about. Empathy, emotional intelligence. You've got to move with your people. You've got to know who they are and what they need from you. Use empathy to inspire and establish links. Creativity. Effective leaders create an encouraging environment for imagination and skills. To lead successfully, respect the creativity of others. When you brainstorm, no idea is a silly idea. Don't make somebody feel silly. Even if you disagree with their idea, don't say that's a stupid idea. That will just shut people down. Encourage people to share and use their imagination. Set high standards for yourself and others. If you come early and work late, people see that. If you come late and leave early, your employees see that too. What standard are you setting? A leader sets the bar high for him or herself. And if we had more time, I'd tell you stories of military leaders I had that were exemplary leaders. And I'll tell you some stories about leaders I've known that were not very good at what they did. Manage as a leader in the front, leading and guiding, but know when to step back and when to let the team take the initiative. Pure management focuses on tasks, while true leadership focuses on people. I absolutely believe that. Pure management focuses on tasks. Pure leadership focuses on people. Team building. True leadership is working with the team to reach a common goal. People management is the most difficult task a leader has. A positive attitude is essential for effective leadership. Team-aware leaders take responsibility when something goes wrong. They don't blame everybody else. They take risks. They're confident enough to make a decision, even if it's a mistake, because you can learn from a mistake. Microsoft and FedEx both have organizational philosophies that allow employees to make mistakes. They encourage you to make mistakes because you're trying something new. The only caveat that is, do not make the same mistake twice. If you tried something that didn't work, no harm, no foul. They want you to do that, but don't make the same mistake twice. Leaders spread enthusiasm for the vision and make things real. And this is the last thing I'll talk about right now. True leadership seeks continuous improvement. So Six Sigma, Lean, they're alive and well. I'm using them now in the VA medical system to help control medical hospitals that are losing money, that are not meeting the needs of their veterans, but are squandering money on some things they don't need. An interesting dynamic that I read due to COVID-19 was one of the reasons that it was so hard for us to respond to COVID-19 in the United States was that many hospitals and other organizations were too lean. So that's something for us to take a look at now. We want to be lean, but we don't want to be too lean. Leaders turn people into stars. Leaders help people grow and improve. A leader should not be threatened by his or her employee, but should be asking them, here's what I need from you, and what do you need from me? How can I help you be successful? So I'm going to stop here. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask.
Wow, Skip, what a presentation. Absolutely mind blowing. Absolutely no flattering, but when you said about that, incident in the army, and it was just, it seemed like a story from the movies, but, absolutely could visualize it. And it's so wonderful. I mean, being at this age and providing such thought provoking session, not only on general leadership, but specific to IT, and put everything together. It was just mind blowing. Thank you so much. Yes, and the thing is open for any comments, questions.
Sure, I'll stay on for 5 or 10 minutes, whatever you need.
Yeah, thank you, Skip. It was a fabulous session, actually. The way you put together, and I can't believe you covered everything in the last less than 1 hour. That's a great presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think people are watching on Facebook Live and then YouTube, and then also in the Zoom. So if somebody has if somebody wants to interact, they need to join the Zoom link. Yeah, otherwise, please go ahead with the questions. The rest of the audience.
Skip, I have a question.
Sure.
In the IT management scenario, I'm seeing the managers and leaders are getting to be more micromanaged. Like the other day, I visited a client organization. One of the department head was almost like yelling across the hall to another guy, "You owe me 1 hour." That guy took 1 hour off for doing something, and then he came back, and then he kind of yells at him saying that you owe me 1 hour. See, if people tend to be so narrow-minded and so micromanaging, acquiring the leadership required to manage the team becomes more and more difficult, and people get demotivated. So how do you recommend that one matures from micromanager into a leader?
That's a great question. Here's one of the challenges that I have found in my experience. I do a lot of work in the area of unconscious bias and diversity and inclusion. And whenever you do a topic like that, almost always, not all, but almost always, they don't make it mandatory. And so who do you think shows up for class? The people who don't need to be there. The people who realize that, hey, this is really important. Well, I see the same thing happen in leadership and supervision development. They might offer a supervision class or a leadership class in your company, but they don't make it mandatory. So the people who need it don't go. So I have a couple of ideas for you, Raj. I don't know, but here's a couple ideas. There's a lot of wonderful TED Talks on TV, on YouTubes and things for leadership. So one thing you might do is once a month, once a week, however often you want to do it, get your whole team together and watch something together, whether it's a TED Talk, whether it's reviewing an article, whether it's whatever it might be. And you might be able to introduce into that some hints about the importance of coaching in organizations now. Coaching is huge. In fact, I'm working on a proposal right now for one of the largest state capitals in the United States to do executive coaching for their executives. So that's one idea. Another idea would be to make leadership mandatory in your organization. Another idea would be for you to sign up for a leadership class and take your colleague with you or take your supervisor with you and have you participate in that together. You could buy he or she a book on leadership. There's a couple of good books out there. And I mean, you could go have a conversation with them and you could say, would you mind if I sat down and shared some things with you? And most reasonable people would say, sure, what's on your mind, Raj? And you might say, I was wondering just, why do you micromanage me? Do you not trust me? And that might really put them on the spot. And they might go, why, of course I trust you. Well, then, why are you always looking over my shoulder and telling me to dot every I and cross every T? That makes me feel like you don't trust me. And you may be able to get them to recognize for the first time, we all have blind spots, and they may have a blind spot. Now, that's assuming you're dealing with a healthy person. You may not be dealing with a healthy person. You may have somebody who has paranoid and doesn't trust anybody and wants to know what's going on everything, or who I've seen situations where leaders take credit for the work of the workers. So you may have someone who really is the Peter principle. I don't know if you remember the Peter principle. The Peter principle says you rise to your level of incompetence. And you have a number of supervisors and leaders who are incompetent. They might have been a good worker bee, but they're not a good leader. Now, I'll tell you another leadership story in my experience. We had a terrific leader, and we had the number two person who was a terrific number two person. But for 1 week or 2 weeks, the number one great leader, he went away. And the number two great number two person, he all of a sudden became the number one person. And I've never seen such chaos in all my life as what happened. We had 53 people in our headquarters. He was now in charge of all 53 of us. He went to every single one of us and said, what do you think we should do, Pierre? Pierre said, well, I think we should do this. What do you think we should do, Julian? Oh, I think we should do that. Okay, we'll do that. And then, Skip, what do you think we should do? I think we should make widgets. Okay, we'll make widgets. He told all 53 of us exactly what he thought we wanted to hear, so we would like him. And what resulted was 53 people having 53 different ideas about what we were doing next and where we were going. So fortunately, our commander came back and he went back to being number 2. He was a great number 2, terrific, but not a number 1. And some people shouldn't be a number 1. And so I don't know if that's helpful, Raj.
Yeah, that appears more a plausible plan, because you need to involve and make everybody realize rather than we dictating from top down. Am I right?
Yep.
People will need to be made to feel included, and people don't want to feel like cogs in the wheel, but then they feel that they are part of the wheel in a bigger picture. Okay.
So are people getting the information they need to do their job and enough information to understand the big picture? Or are they being limited to just working on what they're working on and they don't know why they're doing it?
Yeah, I'm running a company, and I've heard from several of my consultants. The scenario, the replies they are giving is somewhat depressing, because most of the management that they are receiving, management or leadership or whatever you want to call, is mainly operational focused. Hey, this product has to come out by the end of this quarter. Oh, you need to speed up this. You want to speed up that. So if a guy steps out for a personal call, and instead of 5 minutes, he takes 10 minutes to finish the call and come back, that gets noticed, because everything goes into that time limit, partly because of the operational management gaining precedence over people management.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I mean, to a certain degree. I'm not working on a minute by minute deadline, but I'm fortunate in a couple of ways. I'm able to work all day. So I work basically 12 hours. I get up at whatever time I get up, and I work basically till midnight. And my kids are grown, and when my grandkids come over, I'll slow down. But I'm able to spread my time across more than 8 hours, and that allows me to have a little bit of a break in between, or to do different things. That's the nature of what you're doing, is that you've got deliverables and you've got a hot deadline, and then you've got a taskmaster who's trying to hold everybody's people to the task. I don't know what to tell you, other than if you have other options, look at some other options as well. But if that customer's paying your rent and paying your bills and you're making money, then you've got to figure out how to hire employees who are willing to put in the time. Or we call this a margin. You got to build margin into your design, so that instead of having people work 55 minutes and go to the bathroom for 5 minutes every hour, have them work for 50 minutes or 45 minutes, and they have 15 minutes to do whatever they need to do. But when they come back, they've got to be focused on what they do. I don't know. I don't have a clear answer for you. I'm sorry.
No, but honestly speaking, I felt that you gave a very spot on answer to a very subjective question. I mean, it's very difficult to give points to it, but you did give that. And I think, yes, it's how we carry it on, how we deal with it is more important. Yeah. Thank you, Raj, for the question.
Can I ask you one more question, please?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so, I've been doing this for quite some time. I'm a developer. And a lot of the projects that I've been on are, I enter these projects as a contractor. But being a contractor, when you're working on a project, you're supposed to work as a team, but the employer doesn't look at it that way, right? They kind of view you differently than their employees. So an employee might be able to get away with, an employee might do something, they're able to get away with it. Compared to me, if I do the exact thing, then it's like, oh, why are you doing this? Like, how should that be handled as a contractor?
Well, are you working for a federal agency as a contractor?
No.
Okay. Well, the bottom line is you are not the same as them.
Mm-hmm.
You might think you're this. You might think
it's not just me that think I'm the same as them, but they expect you to be the same as them until something happens.
Okay. Well, so yes, I can understand that. Well, let me just tell you this. I work with some contractors that work for the federal government, and I've had contractors work for me on projects. Your contract, let's just take my situation. I signed a contract with the government that I'm going to provide a body, Pierre, and he's going to do 8 hours a day or 8.5 hours a day. And my contract with them is to do no more, no less than that. And let's say you're processing reports and they say you have to process at least 20 reports a day. That's what we're expecting. If you're not processing 20 reports, then there has to be a conversation with the contracting officer about what's going on. Is it something we're doing, or is the workload too much? Are the reports not coming in a way in which we can work with them? Whatever, we have to explore that. Now, employees get in the federal government, employees, I'll give you an example. We were training for the military. Well, the military has to stay in physical shape. So they get off every day to go to the gym for an hour or an hour and a half to work out every couple days. The contractors wanted to get off and go to, they said it wasn't fair. Well, that's not your contract. You're not a government employee. You can't go to the gym for an hour and a half. And the employees will try to pull you into things, Pierre, if I'm hearing you.
Yes.
They're trying to pull you into things that go beyond your scope. And you want to keep them happy because they're the customer, but you don't want to get in trouble. Am I hearing you or no?
Correct. Like even like whenever we make a mistake, right? Being a developer, a lot of time you gotta make mistakes. It's human nature. And they frown upon that. And I understand because they are paying their money, but it's all part of developing, right? But they don't look at it that way. They get very angry. It's like, oh, why did you do it this way? It should have been done this way.
I see. So what do you recommend? What do you recommend?
I mean, they pay money for it, so regardless how I feel, even the employer, even the company I work for, even no matter what, they pay money for it. I just got to deal with it pretty much.
Yeah. In my experience as a contractor, you don't have a whole lot of rights.
Right.
And you're great. And see, it's double trouble for you because the last thing in the world you want to do is be the person that lets your company lose their contract with that customer.
Right.
So you've got pressure to keep the customer happy, and you got pressure to keep your employer happy, and that is double pressure for you. So I wish I had some tips on mindfulness for you or something to manage your stress.
Yeah, and also just to add to that, I think Piri, it's a very practical.
Oh, Piri, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Srini, your voice is breaking.
Everywhere.
Yes.
Unless the customer, we are dealing. Oops. Yeah. Okay. So is it better now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So unless the customer is open-minded, to bring about, the same oneness in the whole team, whether it is a customer's employee or a contractor. I think a forward-looking and an open-minded customer would set guidelines and believes in issue-based thinking rather than trying to like in most of the projects, as long as there are like affiliations and groups and divisions, all this fight is bound to stay. I think we see this everywhere, and this is one of the most common scenarios, one of the most common scenarios that we see everywhere in the projects. Actually, this blame game, and who is right, and this is my team and that's your team. I think at the top level there needs to be something. They should be so open-minded to set the same ground rules, to really let all the members focus on the common vision. Yeah, that's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Well, that was great, and it is to a certain degree. I mean, every situation is different. Sometimes it's them against us. Sometimes it's sometimes you're working so hard you make the employee look bad. So it's a fine line that you walk to keep everybody happy when you're a contractor. And Piri, I'm so sorry. I called you Pierre. I'm sorry. Forgive me.
It's actually Pierre, but I get a lot of people call me Pierre.
Okay. All right. So anyway, any last questions?
So, Pierre, we have to say sorry. We have been calling you the wrong way.
No worries at all.
I get a lot of people
one more
from
question,
India who refer to me. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was saying I get a lot of people from India who call me Pierre. So throughout my career, I just learned to accept Pierre.
I have another 8 or 10 slides. Would you like to see them before I get off?
No, one last question, Skip, is that you said leaders are made and not born. I have a slightly different take on that. Some leaders are definitely born because they have the natural gift of making others feel wanted and others feel secure. Okay?
Yeah.
The other managers, by official designation, they are the leaders, and then they kind of dwell low. They stoop low into becoming a low-level manager because they are not able to realize the true potential of the people by involving them, by motivating them, or by including them in the overall plans. So, of course, the focus should be to develop the leadership skills along the parameters you specified. And I feel the organizational leadership also should give a room for that,
Yeah. So one of the theories, the great man theory, says that leaders are born, they're not made. One of the other theories says that leaders are not born, but they're made by the crucible that they go through. So my sense is there's a little bit of value in all of these different approaches. I have just tried to find a couple that work for me, and I would encourage you to do the same thing. Try to find, bottom line to me, it doesn't matter whether the leader was born that way or whether he or she was mentored that way and they learned it. The point is that they're a good leader. And a good leader is a good leader. And leadership is leadership is leadership. It hasn't changed in a millennia. So these are fundamental principles. Good people are good people. Hard work is hard work. Smart work is smart work. So as much as you can, as much as I can, let's try to build a respectful workplace where people are recognized and valued for their contributions. And if somebody is being beat up, taken advantage of, or being belittled in front of us, let's stand up in their defense. And let's give people the benefit of the doubt. If somebody says or does something that's kind of off the mark, maybe, or tells a joke that's inappropriate, find them when they're alone somewhere private and just share with them. I know you didn't mean anything by that, but when you do this, it really causes problems for everybody. I think if we each can do a little bit, we all can make a difference in the workplace. Bottom line for you to consider as well is, if you're in the wrong place, get out of there. If it's an unhealthy place, get out of there and go find a place where you can be respected and where you can make a contribution.
So
Anyway.
well said, Skip. Yeah. And what do you do when you have a speaker like you who we don't want to let you go? We just want to hear more, more, more. And trust me, we do not usually repeat our guest speakers because we have so many in line. But it would be my earnest request if we can have you again for another day. I'm dying to hear more stories from the Army, from your leadership elsewhere. It's like, that whole gamut of wisdom that you have and experience. So we want to delve deep into that for sure.
Can I have 2 more minutes?
Yes, please go ahead. Please.
All right, let me show you. These are some things that you want to keep in mind. This is what's coming in the future of our organizations. And you may know this already, but
sure.
more flex time. Microsoft already has introduced a 4-day work week in Japan, and Shake Shack has a 4-day work week, and they found it increased performance 40%. So 90% of employees say flexible work time increases morale. So we're going to see more flex time, more remote workers. 66% of companies now are allowing remote work. 16% are fully remote. Increased accountability for all. That radical transparency is needed by organizations. So leaders can't keep critical information from employees. It's going to be harder and harder for them to do that. More training and development needed for managers around skills, around accountability and dialoguing. Dialoguing is talking back and forth together. Increase in female and diverse leadership. We're going to see that. There are studies now that show, when women are in the organization is more successful. So more women in leadership. Employees developing new skills. AI and bots are progressing. So we're going to see that roles and people are going to have to acquire new skills. Large organizations, this is really important, third bullet. Large organizations will function like universities, training workers directly from high school, bypassing college altogether. Leaders must coach and develop continuously. Human resources are involved as well. They got to have new strategic hiring and firing ways. They're going to play a major role in these decisions in employee engagement, succession planning. So, flattening organizations, need to develop self and others, confronting the talent cliff. The largest workforce in history is the baby boomers. We're getting ready to retire. So when we leave, mentoring, coaching, and job shadowing are going to be very important. striving for gender, race, ethnicity balance, shifting to focus development to soft skills and collaborative training, blended approach for leadership development and management development. So that's kind of where we're at. So thank you for the opportunity. I'd be happy to come back at some point, let me know. And thank you so much for hanging in with me.
Thank you, Skip. It was a wonderful evening. It was a very nice, stimulating kind of framework that you have provided. There are plenty of variables that we were not aware of in a very itemized fashion, but then you made it very clear, crystal clear, and clearly delineating the difference, particularly the leader working like a servant, a point that you made in the beginning, which translates into leading from behind, meaning put the team ahead of you and you lead from behind.
That's right. That's exactly right. I'm a firm.
Talk. Wonderful talk. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all.
Yeah. So Raj, you are such a wonderful, you are like a co-host in most of these webinars with your insightful comments. And Pierre also, and I know many of others are there, but they are usually on mute. But yeah, that's really good. I mean, that makes these sessions interesting. And
Thank you.
Definitely, we Skip, we want you back because this is simply awesome, actually. I mean, it's very structured, very focused. And I think, we have a lot more to learn. And definitely, we will try to refer you to any customers where they probably need, some executive coaching. Definitely we can all work together.
Julian, kindly send the copy of the deck and also a copy of the talk itself. I would like to hear at least once more.
Sure.
Oh, that's a great compliment right there.
Yeah, soon Raj will be getting the award for the best interactive attendee for our webinar. But thank you so much, Raj, for this lively interaction that you do every time. And I will send you the deck and the recording as well. And thank you, Skip. I love that one fact for sure, that more women in leadership will make the company grow. Hope Srini heard that clear and loud. But we cannot thank you enough. And it was absolute pleasure having you. And just like tomorrow again, we will be having absolute mind-blowing and technical Let Us Talk It webinar. The topic would be using RPA in auditing, and we will be joined by a global director, and we will see you tomorrow at 12 p.m. EST, and we hope you have a wonderful evening. See you tomorrow. Thank you.
Yeah, I just got one more sentence to add there. So yeah, tomorrow it is about robotic process automation, how to leverage that, for auditing. And then day after tomorrow, we have how to manage uncertainty. And then we are kickstarting Let Us Talk It Youth Series. I think one of our first sessions we are going to announce pretty soon. So that is about, the youth talking about, it's a brainstorming session, how they are managing their daily schedules, amid this COVID and also in general. So it will be like youth discussing and brainstorming on that. So you are going to hear about that pretty soon. Thank you all. Have a good one.
Thank you, Srini.
Take care.
Thank you.